In our ongoing Oscar catch-up, we are now talking about September 5, which is up for Best Original Screenplay. It also won one of our Best Editing Awards from the LA Film Critics Awards this past year, and the editing is definitely a highlight of this film. Alonso, please tell us about it.
This is our story, and we're keeping it.
What do I tell the cameras?
What do you mean?
I mean, can we show someone being shot on live television?
This is set during the 1972 Summer Olympics, and it's Munich, and ABC is there providing live coverage. Satellite TV is a very new and exciting thing. And in the middle of, Mark Spitz's record-breaking swim toward Oscar gold, or Olympic gold, there's a terrorist incident. And the word terrorist sort of seems new in everybody's mouth in this movie. But basically, the group Black September comes in and holds the Israeli team and several coaches hostage. And suddenly the ABC sports team, run by Rune Arledge, played by Peter Sarsgaard, and an up-and-coming producer named Jeffrey Mason, played by John Magaro, realize that they are yards away from a breaking story, and they insist on covering it, even though they are not the news division, they're sports. But they're trying to make sense of this thing as it's unrolling, and they're trying to figure out the logistics of, well, what if we just take one of these cameras out of the studio and put it outside onto the lawn and point it at the balcony? They've got Peter Jennings, who was really there, kind of working, hiding in another apartment so he could watch the balcony and see what's going on. We cut to Jim McKay, the actual Jim McKay in 1972, trying to moderate this whole breaking situation while also, there's still volleyball happening and, all these other things are going on. Leonie Benesch from the Teacher's Lounge.
Leonie Benesch.
Benesch, sorry. Plays the one German-speaking staff member, the translator for the ABC sports team, who gets called into duty to sort of help them figure out what's going on and to get into places they couldn't get to otherwise. Ben Chaplin, who I did not recognize at first, haven't seen him in a while, plays a Jewish producer for the sports team, which obviously comes into play where he's trying to sort of, balance out what they're saying and when, and figuring out in the middle of all this, oh wait, we're broadcasting this not just to the world but to the kidnappers. They have a TV in that apartment, they can see what we see. Are we messing up the rescue attempt? It's a very tense and terse look at this moment that was a flashpoint both for sort of, international politics, because this was the Olympics that was meant to sort of bring Germany back into the world and let them move past, the sins of the past, but also this huge moment for television news and the way that live breaking events were covered. And I was fascinated throughout, and this is a riveting movie. And I think it passes what I call the Apollo 13 test, which is when you already know the events, the outcome of historical events, and yet watching a movie about them is tense and thrilling, and you don't know what's going to happen next, and you don't know how we're going to get to the thing that that happens. It's all happening here. It's really great.
I feel like United 93 did that too. It was so gripping. You never forget that there's going to be a plane crash, but you're into it. You're glued.
1776, I've always said, fits that category.
It's a tough thing to achieve, right? Yeah. When the conclusion is a done deal and an important part of history, how do you make all that suspenseful? I think by being nuts and bolts with very specific people and how they navigate it is a way to go. Tim Fehlbaum is a Swiss director. He directed it and co-wrote the script, and they really wanted to get the TV news stuff right, the television stuff right. I met the other screenwriter at our LA Film Critics dinner, and I said, oh, my husband's a longtime TV news producer. I look forward to watching this with him because he knows this world so well. And he's like, that was really important to us. We wanted to get that right. And I feel like they really do. I watched it with Chris right here on this TV, and he thought, of course, technology is totally different now than it was 50-something years ago, but the conversations about how to handle breaking news are the same. And there was no precedent for these people. There was no blueprint for how to handle this kind of terrorist attack on live television. And you see, it's film still and what they have to do to get the film out there and then get it out of the camera and then bring it back, what they have to do to create what we know to be chirons, you know, so we know who is speaking at different times.
Yeah, now it's just like clackety clack clack, but back then you had to put the little letters on the board, you know.
It's amazing, yeah. And then what Leonie Benesch can do as far as being able to translate, and she's not a journalist, but she's got amazing instincts, so she knows where to listen and who's going to have the breaking news and how can she help them navigate this and make sense of it. Yeah, John Magaro is great in it because you can feel that like there's so much on the line. And once they realize, oh, the terrorists can see this too, they have to balance not just like getting this first and getting it right, but not affecting it in a way that is potentially damaging or deadly.
Yeah, which has been an ongoing issue. I remember first Gulf War, I want to say, like CNN aired something that like the other side was like, oh, okay, well then I guess we're not going to go there. You know, like they, you know, this has been an ongoing thing of like news sources having to realize like, okay, we can't reveal that this is the next plan or they're going to be in this location or whatever. And so, yeah, they're like having to kind of learn this on the spot because it just literally has never come up before in the medium.
And also, you don't want to broadcast people being killed live on television. Well, this is the thing that happens with car chases all the time, and on TV news, like car chases are catnip, and like they're easy viewing, right? Because ooh, what's going to happen? What freeway are they on now? But then when the car pulls over or gets hit by the spike strips, like how do you cover this and then not show someone blowing their head off on live TV or whatever it is, you know?
Right, and they have to have the conversation at this point, like, are we going to show this if it happens, if it goes there? And again, it's like, no one's had to talk about this before. Like this is this moment of like, you know, it's not like you took some journalistic ethics class where they discuss this. They're literally in the moment realizing, oh, wait, this is one of the scenarios here. What do we do? What's our responsibility here as news gatherers, but also as, you know, broadcasters where like families everywhere tuning in. The families of the hostages are tuned in to us, you know, to watch this. You know, and I love that kind of nuts and boltsy stuff. Like one of my favorite TV movies ever is, did you ever see Special Bulletin?
No, but I know what it is. You mentioned it before.
Yeah, Zwick and Herskovitz is like their first kind of breakthrough thing, and it's sort of like the Orson Welles War of the Worlds broadcast, where they create a TV movie that you're watching a television network's coverage of a fictional terrorist event, but they do it exactly the way like a breaking news story would unfold, and it's riveting to watch. And this gave me that same kind of vibe of, you know, even though it's a real thing and a genuine tragedy of what's going on, it's not about the tragedy itself. It's about the people on the outskirts who are like covering it and thrust into this weird historical position that they were not expecting to be in. And so I love the ideas of this movie. I love the mechanics of this movie. The editing is so good. And the fact that this is an original screenplay, that it's not based on an article or somebody's book about it, like it's amazing the research they did to really get into the nitty gritty of how all this stuff came together. And I don't know what's true and what they made up, but I mean, it all feels, you know, very organically like what putting together live TV of that era must have been like. Everything looks like it is covered in cigarette smoke.
Right. They're all smoking constantly in the booth. Yeah. And one thing that Chris said too, that they get really right is, this is not a spoiler, they jump the gun, no pun intended, on reporting something that ends up to not bear out the way they thought it was going to be. And Chris was like, that feeling when you get it wrong, like the way that John Magaro reacts, like they've had these discussions, like, what do we report? Are we sure? Do we have confirmation? And like, they want to report something so badly. They want to be first to deliver this. They want to get it out now. And the fact that it does not turn out that way, like that sinking feeling, he said, was incredibly accurate, the way that they depicted that. Yeah, everyone's great in this. Peter Sarsgaard gives this really stirring speech that could have been super heavy-handed and maudlin and cheesy, and he finds just the right tone to rouse his troops to rise to the moment, and it's just like the right pitch of it.
I was really blown away by this. And again, this was on, like, when I had to sit down and write my top 10 list last year, there was a short list of films that I felt really, I meant to get to them and I just didn't have time to. And this was certainly one of them. And I suspect if it hadn't made my top 10, it would be real close.
Yeah. Well, and they don't get into the politics of it, which I've seen some complaints about that. But I think that's not the story they're trying to tell.
Yeah,
they're not telling the story of the larger politics, not taking sides.
Exactly, because for it's a story about these people who are just trying to report it, and they had no stake in the politics either. They were just like trying to relate the events as they were unfolding, and it's like I think that's a luxury you get later, to sort of when you look back at an event and can kind of parse out the stuff. Obviously, I'm sure it's going to wind up being a double feature with Munich, because that's sort of the follow up to this actual event, and that totally gets into the politics,
Yeah, and it moves really well. It's only like an hour and a half long, but it feels like it's all in real time. Like what happened? This whole thing takes place over like a day.
Yeah. Like it starts at about 4 o'clock in the morning and goes till late at night. But yeah, it just whoop.
What's your number?
A 9.2. I really like this one. So yeah, it's rentable and you can get it on Blu-ray. So I suggest you do. What's your number?
I will say 9. Yeah, it's great. And I'm so glad that we honored it for its editing at LAFCA. That was a good choice on our part. So September 5 is out there in the world for you to catch up with before Oscars. Please do.